Hello ladies and gentlemen. In this third video of the one-point perspective city drawing, I'm going to show you how to add a few extra details on your buildings. We talked last time about certain details and how the certain lines either stay the same if they're vertical or change from horizontal to orthogonal. But this video I'll show you how to draw some words or signs on your buildings and then some other details as well. First of all, if you remember, horizontal lines can be on the side of the building facing you. So if I want to draw siding on a building, I will draw horizontal lines across. However, on the side facing the road, there's a change that happens. Because this side is traveling away from the viewer, it's getting smaller. And so all of these lines have to line up with the vanishing point. I'm going to demonstrate on this building right here again, and I'm going to make it have bricks instead. So if I have the brickwork, I can draw, I'm going to make it every ½ inch, and I'm going to mark every ½ inch so my bricks will be evenly spaced. And I will draw horizontal lines going across. Slide my ruler down. Make sure it's parallel with the top and bottom of the building or the top and bottom of your paper. Should be parallel. Draw horizontal lines all the way across. And then when you are drawing the lines on the side facing the road, make sure you pivot the ruler with the vanishing point and match it up at the corner of the building. And then I will draw a line to the vanishing point. Pivot my ruler down and draw. Down and draw. This will give the illusion or the effect that the building really is getting smaller as it gets further away. Sometimes it's hard to see the detail on the side of the building because the side might be really skinny, but that's okay. This gives the illusion that we have the side that's going to the vanishing point. Now, if I want to make bricks, I'm going to mark every, let's see, maybe I'll mark every ½ inch just for the sake of time. So I'm going to mark every other section with vertical lines going down. Then I can go back and in between the lines on the next brick, I'll draw a vertical line going down so that the bricks look like they're staggered. So in one row I have 3 bricks and in the next row I have 4. But make sure these lines are all vertical. I didn't use a ruler just because they are shorter lines, but if it helps you, you can use a ruler. On the side facing the road, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but these lines still should be vertical, straight up and down, because vertical lines don't change. So I'm going to have 1 and then 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then draw your vertical lines that way. So it's a little bit harder to see, but you can still see it looks like brick. That is how you would draw brick. We've got some siding and then some vertical lines as well. Keep in mind, let's say you're drawing windows. As an architect, if you are drawing windows, how do you notice the placement of windows are on buildings? You will probably see that they are perfectly in line with one another. So if I have a window, I should make sure every window is lined up. And that's why I draw a guideline at the top and bottom. And then I can draw vertical lines to evenly space my windows. So there's one. I'm going to skip an inch and then draw another window. Make sure your windows are lined up and even with their spacing. We want to make it look intentional with the design of our buildings, and each one should be unique. Remember, there are only 3 types of lines, mainly vertical, horizontal, and then to the vanishing point, which is called orthogonal. That's important to stick with. Remember, as we talked about, there are exceptions. For example, this diagonal line, it doesn't go to the vanishing point. It's not vertical or horizontal, but it still makes sense with the drawing because it's a triangle building. So there are exceptions. Let's talk about signage now for the words if you want to add words on the side of your building. I'm going to draw a building name, and the title of that building will be, what should the title be of my building? The name. Paradigm. Oh, I like it. So I'm going to write, thank you. I'm going to write Paradigm at the top of my building. It will be the coffee shop in Sheboygan. I need to draw a guideline for the bottom and top of my words first, really lightly. And then what I want to do is I'm going to write it out so I make sure I spell it correctly, Paradigm. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 letters. So if I cut this in half, visually, I need 4 on this side and 4 on this side. What I would do first is just sketch it out really lightly. I should have them closer together. That way, I'm going to start with my middle letter first. That way you get it evenly spaced and you don't have mistakes. So there's Paradigm. Next, what I can do is I can turn these into block letters because we want bold signs on our buildings. We don't want any signs that are really skinny. We want them to be very visible. So here is my writing the Paradigm in big, thick block letters. And I might choose to color them in once we add color. So here is my word. I drew that kind of quickly, but you can see nice thick letters. I can color them in later. And they're evenly spaced. These letters are written normally because they are on the side facing the viewer. So we have vertical lines for the P and the R and the D and the I and the M. And then we have horizontal lines that go across for the A's. And that's mainly it. And then we have some exceptions. On the side facing the building, if you want to write the title on the side facing the road, draw guidelines, but instead of horizontal ones, remember, it changes to orthogonal. So draw it to the vanishing point, the top and the bottom. This is the trickiest thing to do, is to write letters on the side of the buildings because it takes a lot of practice. If I am writing Paradigm on this side, my letters still need to be vertical if there are vertical parts. So it looks very slanted. I am going to make this building a little bit longer just because I'm having a hard time fitting it on. And that's okay, you might have to make adjustments. I picked a longer name, which is a little bit challenging. But not a big deal. If you run into mistakes, you can always adjust it and make changes if you need to. So here's the bottom, here's the top, and then here's my extension. So for my lettering, the P should be perfectly vertical with the edge of my building, and then the curved part angles down. Same thing with the A. The R should be vertical as well. The D is vertical. The I should be perfectly vertical. And then the M should be vertical as well. So here we have the Paradigm. It's angling towards the vanishing point, but my vertical lines still stay vertical. And if you remember, we looked at some examples of the lettering on the side of the building facing the road, and it really does stay vertical. I'm just going to extend the top of my building here. And I'm wondering if I would see this edge. I think I would. If I take this to the vanishing point, I would barely see this edge of my roof. I thought that looked a little weird. So lettering, keep it the same on the side facing us, but then you have to carefully make changes on the side facing the road. Another thing that helps make your city look more realistic, adding the road, of course, like I demonstrated in the last video, where these lines get shorter and shorter and skinnier, the center lines, is also making sidewalks, which I also demonstrated, and making pathways that go to each building along with side roads. So you can just draw horizontal lines. Maybe they match up with the doors going from the road to the side of the building. These should be horizontal lines. And that will help make it look like you can actually walk down the sidewalk and go to a building, walk down the sidewalk, go to a building. I'm going to add a door here with 2 vertical lines. And the top of my door, what type of line do I have for the top of the door on the side facing the road? If you said orthogonal or to the vanishing point, you are correct. So that should be vertical. That will make it look like we have some things happening here. Think about what details you can add around your buildings. Maybe you want to have a park bench. Maybe you want to have trees. If you're drawing trees, no matter where they are, if they're vertical trees stay vertical. They don't bend. So if you want to draw some trees, they would be smaller as they're further away and bigger as they're closer to the viewer. So trees would be a good option if you want to add some detail. You could have cars on the street. But remember, keep your lines going to your vanishing point if you're drawing a vehicle. The sides of your truck or your vehicle would go to the vanishing point because it gets smaller as it gets further away. And we would mainly see the top of it. So you could have something like this with wheels. Here's the back window, the little latch. Here's some side view mirrors. And then this would be the top, would be smaller if you want the headlights or the front of the vehicle. But keep in mind the sides should go to the vanishing point if it's on the road. So adding little details like vehicles or people or maybe things inside the windows, decorations, that will all make your city look like it is inhabited and it will look more interesting. Last thing, besides detail on the buildings and then some detail around your buildings, is with the sky and the horizon line. If you want to make a more interesting horizon line, you can do a couple of things. One is if you want a mountain range, like in my example, keep your mountains very loose. I don't want to see triangle mountains. We want to try to make them look more realistic. And then if your sun is setting, it should be right over your horizon line. And it should be the furthest thing back. If you don't want your sun setting, just make a circle in one of the sides or above on the top. No suns in corners. We don't do that. If you look up pictures of suns on the internet, rarely or ever do you see a sun that's directly in the corner of a photograph or an image. So just make a circle on your paper and that can be the sun. Another option is a city skyline. Use a ruler, but you can draw little tiny buildings in the distance. They should probably be smaller than this, like this, so that they look really, really, really far away. But you can have a city skyline instead. If you have any questions, you can ask. Look at your direction sheet to give you guides. It gives you tips on how to draw what detail, and happy drawing.